Hello, welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. With me, your host, Owen James. This is the Sunday supplement. It is the 28th of July, and that is it. Pre-season is officially over. It is now all building towards next Saturday with the league season kicking off as Rangers will head to Tynecastle to take on Hearts. Well, it was an absolutely mentalist game today in Berlin, a 4-4 draw with some very positive signs from the attack and a defence that more resembled the Benny Hill show than anything else. A defence so dreadful, despite what Philippe Clement had to say post-match, where he said it wasn't that he wasn't concerned at all about the fact we'd conceded 10 goals in 4 games and wasn't concerned at all about the defence. Philippe, I'm sorry to say, everyone else is very concerned about this defence. But I guess, you know what, he can't come out and say they're all shit because he can't throw the players under the bus. And we will talk a little bit of defence and how they appeared and what needs to happen. And we're going to talk, yes, we're going to grasp the controversial nettle. I'm going to take the abuse as I talk about how Rangers, for some fans, is fast becoming TAV FC rather than Rangers FC. And it seems in the eyes of some of our fans, he is bigger than the club. Well, 4-4. It was a pretty amazing game all in. And, you know, we look at the starting lineup that played today. I suppose, realistically, with the exception of perhaps Ridvan for Hefte, that is probably the strongest lineup we currently have. I suppose Tierney will come in for Wright once he is up to speed. Although it does worryingly seem like Scott Wright will be going nowhere this season, as the manager does seem to have, you know, quite a love for Scott Wright. I don't personally get it. I don't personally understand it. Don't rate the player. Genuinely don't get how he gets in the team. His end product is absolutely shocking. Yes, he did score that goal against Birmingham, but overall his end product is pretty poor. So genuinely don't understand that one. Jack Butland had a pretty poor game again today, which is rather worryingly, although he was hideously exposed by the absolute comedy cuts of a back four. James Tavernier starting at right back again, which was just dreadful to see. Dujon Sterling is unfortunately injured again, which of course does raise questions as regards his fitness. But post-match, Philippe Clement did speak about the fact that this is a lot down to wear and tear, given the fact that Dujon had done 2 to 3 times more in pre-season than he'd ever done before. Suter and Davis, our centre-back pairing, just looked awful. Neither of them could take a lead. Neither of them were commanding. Both of them were genuinely awful. Hefte looks like a pub left-back. He really does just cannot defend whatsoever. His defensive skills, well, I suppose his defensive skills are Brazilian. I mean, how many Brazilian fullbacks can actually defend? Barron and Diomande were absolutely fantastic yet again. And we're going to talk about Mohamed Diomande and Connor Barron, who've just been the shining lights of pre-season. Absolutely superb. Absolutely brilliant. Just unbelievably brilliant. I mean, Diomande, I think, is going to be a player that when it does unfortunately come time for him to actually leave Rangers, which I think will come sooner rather than later, you'll be looking at somewhere in the region of 20 to 30 million pounds for the boy. I mean, he just is that sort of talent. 2-footed, fine space. Just we'll talk a bit more about him shortly. Thought Tom Lawrence had a very good game today. Did less, but did more, if you get what I mean. Did less of the defensive work, less of the running around, and more of the influencing on the attacking play, which enabled him to have a slightly more energy for the attacking side of the game. And he got his 2 goals as well. So, you know, all credit to Tom today. I thought he was very good indeed. Scott Wright, average at best. Cortez still coming back from injury. And Cyril Dessers, a man who just, I don't know. I genuinely don't understand Cyril Dessers. I don't get it. 2 very, very good goals today. The second goal, very Cyril Dessers indeed. The first goal, very un-Cyril Dessers. I mean, the first goal, he took the least possible touches he could take and scored a goal, which is what we've all been crying out for him to do. The second one, he chops back in, he little turn, little spin. He perhaps has a little bit too many touches, but still manages somehow to get the ball through the goalkeeper's legs. Very good finish. I thought overall he did very well today. You know, full credit to the boy. So was benched today was Liam Kelly, Bazanakis, Ridvan, who got on, Matondo, who got on and looked poor, and Ciala, Balogun, King, who I thought when he came on at right back actually looked better than James Tavernier. Ross McCausland and Danilo were the substitutes. Now, rather than go through the game and kind of talk about what everyone's done that, I want to pick out some different elements of today's game and of yesterday's game, and talk a little bit about that. Now, I want to start by talking about these two here. I thought, again, these two were absolutely fantastic. They have been all pre-season. And for me, I know Phil's talked, and he talked post-match about a team for Hearts and then a different team for Kiev, and rotation, which to some degree, yes, I can see, but to other degrees, they don't do that. You don't see Celtic rotating their midfield a great deal. They keep a very solid team, a very similar team, barring injury. Personally, that's the way to go. Teams that rotate too much, I don't think go on to be very successful, because they can become a bit disjointed. They become a little bit, there doesn't seem to be a unity of purpose. There doesn't seem to be, in particular, a real kind of gluing together. But I think for me, going forward for the rest of this season, as long as they're fit, Barron and Diomande have to be, if we're going to use a 4-2-3-1, have to be that too. They're just top class. I mean, Barron does the donkey work, he does the hard work, he gets stuck in, he tackles, he runs around, he shows high energy, something that was drastically missing from our team last season. And the refreshing thing as well from Barron is when he gets the ball at the back, or he takes it from the back four, his first intention is not Lundstrom-esque. It's not to play it back or to play it sideways. It is to go forwards. It is to pass forwards. It is to move the ball forwards. It's always a positive move from him. And that's what this team's been crying out for. And I think it's no strangeness that these two today played very well, and first half in particular, our attack was very good because these two were very good. Dio, I've just got to speak about this lad. I just think that he is an absolute class act. He is just the best player we have on this squad by streets. He's two-footed. He finds space. The way he just turns away from players to create that space. He glides past people. He can play the ball off both feet. He reads the game so well. He's constantly directing the game as well. If you watch Dio during a game, he's pointing, he's shouting, he's calling, he's telling players where he wants them to run, where he wants them to move, where he wants them to be available. He's got a kind of real midfield general type head, a real leader's head on those very young shoulders of his. And, even for a slight young lad, he's physical. He gets stuck in. He doesn't get shrugged off the ball. He just looks different class. And it was a superb ball from him that led to that first goal. And he is, for me, a player that, if we build this team around him and give him ball, he will destroy teams in the SPL. He will absolutely destroy them. And I include Celtic in that. He will absolutely pull them to pieces. They've got no one in the same class as this young lad. He is just top class. And I think, like I said, it's no strangeness that the best moments from pre-season have come when these two have been together and when Dio has been on top of his game. And just the way he plays the game as well. He plays it with an energy. He plays it with a speed. He doesn't want to move the ball slowly. He wants to move it quickly, which is what you need when you're going up against a mid to low block, when you're trying to get through teams. That's what you need to see. And for me, Dio was just on a different level again today. He just looks a player, just looks an absolute top player. So, look, very positive from those two. I thought as well, Tom Lawrence today, whether it was what the manager asked him to do or there was a slight change of tactic, it worked. And it genuinely did work for those who've been criticising Clement's tactics. Lawrence was asked to do a little less today defensively and a little more offensively. And I think that really showed for me, the way he obviously gets his 2 goals. He gets involved with the attack a lot more. He links up between the midfield and the attack. He does not really do a lot of the defensive side. That's left to Dio and Barron, which is kind of why you have those 2 players. If your 10 keeps going deep and tracking back and not staying high, then obviously you lose a lot of that attacking prowess. The less players you have at that front when the ball is released to the front, the less chance you've got of getting an attack going, of moving the ball quickly, of causing the opposition problems. And I thought today, Tom did that very well. He was more offensively minded. And we saw from Tom Lawrence what we all know he's got. He's got that shot in him. He's got the ability to score goals. Look, I still think we need a 10, of course we do. But if Lawrence does stay around for the season, then so be it. We need a squad. Clement's been quite clear in the fact that he's going to rotate. He said that post-match. He said one team for Hearts and one other team for Dynamo Kiev. That's who it seems to be we're going to play. Look, this is what we need to do. And to me today, that midfield trio that, you kind of look at and think, well, yeah, I know Lawrence is part of that 3 behind the striker, but that midfield kind of trio of the 2 holders and the more offensive-minded player with kind of the 8 role going to Dio, really, to me, today looked a lot more joined up. And the best moments in the first half came because that midfield were controlling the game. They were pulling the strings. They were creating the chances. They were moving forward offensively. And offensively, Rangers looked a lot better today. And that is very, very encouraging going into the new season. Now, one of the downsides of today's game was this absolute shit show at the back. I thought, the starting back four of James Tavernier, I will talk about Tav. And some people won't like what I've got to say. And if you don't like what I've got to say, I don't care. John Suter, Ben Davis, and Jeff Tay, whatever he's called, were just shocking today. Were just absolutely awful. Now, Big Phil may not be concerned, but I think the vast majority of fans, the vast majority of analysts, the vast majority of people looking at that game independently were extremely concerned about that defence. I think, we've talked about the fact that this defence is in need of a rebuild. We've spoken about this ad infinitum. We've exhausted this point. And at the moment, there has been no movement on strengthening that defense. There's been no strengthening has really come about. I mean, Nsiala signed, but again, this is a young player for the future. Hefte, again, this is a young player. This is a back four today that just looked absolutely diabolical. I mean, absolutely diabolical. Davis and Suter were passed by as if they weren't there. Suter gets caught under the high ball again, which he's been done on numerous occasions with, even though he's playing on the favourite side of his defence, which is his right side. He's done that on the left side, which some people have put down to the fact that he is not a left-sided centre-back. Fair enough. Today he's on the right side. Yes, I know he's got a cover for Tav, who can't defend to save his life, but it's still getting caught under that high ball. The two fullbacks today defensively were absolutely dreadful. I mean, it was like having two non-tackling fullbacks. It was like a non-contact game for them. Jeff Tay was appalling at left back yet again. His defensive skills are just awful. Now, for me, Ridvan has to start against Hearts and he has to start against Kiev. You cannot start Jeff Tay in either of those games. Yes, he can come off the bench and get used to the game in Scotland and Europe. But if you start Jeff Tay in either of those games, we will get ripped down that left side, as well as, obviously, if Tav starts, we'll get ripped down the right side as well. Jeff Tay was to blame, for at least a couple of the goals. Tav was to blame for at least a couple of the goals. And I've said that on a number of platforms tonight, and I've been absolutely ripped to shreds by the Tav lovers, the Tav FC crew, the Tav fanboys, the people who seem to think that this is not Rangers FC, but it's Tav FC, and that he's bigger than the club, which to me is unfortunately, a vocal minority, or I don't know how many, but it is a group that just don't seem to understand how football is played and the need to defend, and the fact that James Tavernier is one of the worst defenders in this squad. I mean, listening to David Edgar earlier, and it's interesting to see if David Edgar gets the same levels of abuse that I get. David Edgar said this was the worst performance by Tav in a Rangers shirt for a very long time, and I've got to agree with David Edgar. James Tavernier today was absolutely fucking appalling. The guy looked unfit. He looked overweight. He was to blame for at least two of the goals. He was to blame for the penalty with his inability to cut out the ball. In fact, he then falls over. Comic cuts. The fourth goal, or I can't remember, the third or the fourth goal, where the guy cuts in on his right foot. Tav just lets him come inside, force him outside. If you're playing right back and you've got a guy who is a right-footed left winger, you don't let him come inside onto his right foot. Basic defensive 101. Tavernier just lets him come inside, lets him drift inside. And, those people who do, this love for Tav that there seems to be for some, yes, he is good going forward, but he's defensively fucking appalling. He's costing us goals. He's costing us a hell of a lot at the back. And if he plays, he has to be captain. But he's not a captain. He's not a leader. He couldn't lead a fucking flock of sheep out of a field. I mean, you watch him against Birmingham, and it's no word of a lie. A League One team are repeatedly attacking the right side of our defence and getting in behind him. Watch the fucking video if you don't think so. It just absolutely boils my blood that you've still got people out there that say that Tav must start. Tav must be the captain. Tav must be the player that gets, that is the first name on the team sheet. What the fuck are they actually watching? it's, to me, it seems like with this little vocal minority, and the shit that I get for it is ridiculous, but like this little vocal minority, and I'll read a couple of comments that I've had shortly to you, would be happy for Tav to play every single game for Rangers and Celtic go on to win the treble. But as long as Tav plays every game and Tav's happy, that's the main thing. That's what we want, is we want this. And I think to some of the fans, or so-called fans, it's that Tav is becoming bigger than the club. Absolutely bigger than the club. At the end of the day, it is just an absolute joke. I mean, you got this comment, the fact that this bullshit, 2 of their goals were exactly the same goals. Certainly not Tav's fault. They were both scored on the left side of our defence. It's not Tav's fault. This was a genuine comment that I got back. This one, some of the comments boil my piss. He's been a great servant to the club. Is it any wonder players don't want to play or are leaving because of it? I don't give a shit about the backlash, as I don't have to listen to it day in, day out. Surprised any player wants to sign, given the hatred our players are showing. Why not just get behind Tav and the team? Anyone else involved in the club? Abuse me, I don't care, but Tav has to play. These are genuine comments that I'm getting from people that, it's all about Tav. It's all about him. And to me, it just seems, I don't understand it. No matter how bad he is, no matter how dreadful he genuinely is, he just has to play. And they just want him to play no matter what. And I don't understand it. I genuinely don't get it. Take the penalties off him. He scored 58 goals for Rangers in his career. That's pretty shit. At the end of the day, this lad cannot defend anymore. Yes, in the past, he was a good servant, 55, etc., etc. But for the last couple of seasons, he has got progressively worse and worse and worse. Watch the games. Watch the tape. Take your Tav glasses off. Take your Tav laminated pictures, put them to one side, and watch how he actually plays. This defence is absolutely awful. It needs to be improved. Now, the attacking side of the game, yes, excellent, much better, very positive. Dio, Barron, great. Lawrence, fantastic. Cyril Dessers, take a bow, son. Great today. Well done. Keep it up. But that back four, just not good enough in the slightest. We need a new right back. Dujon, obviously, I think is the best right back we've got at the club. Even when I've got people telling me that Tav is the best right back at the club and is better than Dujon Sterling as a right back, don't see it. But we need a new right back, and we need at least one commanding centre half. Neither of those two take the lead. Neither of those two dominate. And before anyone comes back at me and says, "Oh, well, that's because you sound Connor Goldson." No, Goldson was getting worse as well over the last couple of seasons. We need someone else to come in who's going to be a leader at the back, a dominator at the back, someone who can control what is going on at the back. That's what we need going forward. We need something to improve that defence. That defence is simply not good enough. And yes, perhaps Butland should have saved some of those chances today, and I get that, but he's been exposed by a pretty shit defence today. And I think, there's a lot of people as well, I've read comments, it's not Tav's fault, it's all Jack Butland's fault. Get your head out your ass, for God's sake. Look at what you're actually seeing on the pitch. And, whilst we're in here, defending someone who has gone backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards, you do know that one group of players and fans who want to see Tav play next year are Celtic fans and Celtic players, because they know they can exploit him. Dyson Maida can't wait to play against Tav, because every time he plays against him, he has him in his back pocket. They won 4-1 today against Chelsea, while we drew 4-4 against Union Berlin. It puts a bit of perspective onto it, doesn't it? It was quite a strong Chelsea side as well. So we do need this defence massively improved. Now, I know I am going to get loads of dislikes on this video, and I know I'm going to get an absolute torrent of abuse. I genuinely couldn't give a fuck anymore. Genuinely don't care, because I am genuinely sick to death of finishing second. I am genuinely sick to death of seeing trophies with green and white ribbons. I am genuinely sick to death of hearing snidey little remarks from Callum McGregor, from Brendan Rodgers, from all their little so-and-so's minions. And I'm sick to death of listening to their fans gloating. And I'm sick to death of always being second to them at this moment in time. You might not be. You genuinely might not be. You genuinely might think, well, you know what? As long as Tav plays, I'm happy. That's great. Wonderful. Fabulous. Knock yourself out. Couldn't care less. But as a fan who cares about this club, as a fan who wants this club to win trophies and get back to where we should be, at the top of the Scottish game, I'm sick to death of this. We need to sort this defence out. Tab needs to go. We need some new centre backs. Ridvan's got to start at left back. For me, that's where we've got to go. And if we look on match day 1 against Hearts or on the Champions League qualifier match day 1, and James Tavernier is starting either of those 2 games, we are fucked. Big style. Right, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. I'm ready for the abuse. As always, guys, on the way out, do me 2 favors. 1, smash that like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.